I remember talking to one dentist and he said, he took a class and he said, "So you mean to tell me that I should try to appeal my crown buildups?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he looked at the girl and the girl looked at him and she said, "Nobody ever told me that." And I was like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
wonder why I named my podcast that."
You mentioned also too submitting on the claim form all of the even if it's a non-covered procedure, non-covered treatment. So I always use for when I'm doing presentations, I always use the example. There's a lot of policies out there that the buildup is inclusive of the crown prep if it's done on the same day.
Mhm.
Well, same theory behind that is that when you're submitting even the non-covered procedures on the claim form, that's the actual cost to do that treatment. So
Yeah.
you know that you're going to take a write-off for the buildup if it's done on the same day of the crown, but it's not that you didn't do the buildup. It's still there. You still did the
Yeah.
buildup. So that's the other reason behind submitting everything, even if it's a non-covered procedure on the claim form.
So I've had I'm not going to say a ton of success. I used to be a lot more successful at getting buildups paid than I used to be. I mean, I just
Mm-hmm.
think that they've become very stringent on it. But I'm starting to see where I'm getting some more success, and some of the billers that I talk to are getting success because with same day crowns now, there is no opportunity to do one day and then have them come
Sure.
back. You just don't do
Yeah.
that. I mean, not that
And why would you do
most
that? To have the
people,
patient
I
inconvenienced as
know.
well, also too. Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
understood that, right? So now with having good clinical notes as to why the amount of tooth structure missing and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So what we find a lot is that the buildups are auto adjudicated to be inclusive. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why you need somebody
Absolutely.
who's trained to know to look
Yeah.
at appeals and question everything. I remember talking to one dentist and he said, he took a class and he said, "So you mean to tell me that I should try to appeal my crown buildups?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he looked at the girl and the girl looked at him and she said, "Nobody ever told me that." And I was like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
wonder why I named my podcast
Right?
that." But she said, "Nobody."
That's a great name for a podcast. Yeah.
She said, "Nobody ever told me." He goes, "Well, I never knew." And she goes, "I didn't know." And they were both looking at each other. And I had to be like, "It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Usually you can
Yeah.
go back. You have a year. Go pull up your reports and go back and see. And you know what? If you can recover a third of those, then you've learned something. It's good. So
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
beat yourself up over it." But I always wonder, like these offices that never appeal anything, like,
Oh my gosh.
you know?
I am like, I say all the time, appeal it, file an appeal, file an appeal. And I'm like a broken record when it comes to that. And there's so many reasons behind it. Like we have a law that they have to respond. Once you appeal, it sets in place a timestamp that they have to make a decision on it within 45 days. So if you think that
Mm,
they're not listening to you, like that requires them to make a decision on it. So, that starts it. But then also too, the amount of appeals and grievances that are filed against a plan, those plans have to report those to Department of Managed Healthcare and the Department of Insurance. And so
mhm.
if the regulators start to see that these plans are having appeals and grievances for the same type of procedures over and over again, they'll look at them and they'll fine them if they see that it's, against any insurance code. So that's why I'm a big appeal everything, appeal it. And the computers, auto adjudication, who knows.
Well, and so that actually on the medical side, I know you've heard about this, but the Cigna is under investigation for utilizing
Yeah.
AI in their auto
Mm-hmm.
adjudication because the amount
Sure.
of appeals and patient complaints, that actually is what triggered it because it just went up in volume, the amount of
Yeah.
appeals and all that. And that kind of had
Yeah.
people looking, wait a second. So what I'm talking about, people, is that they were accused of using AI in their benefit determinations because things were just getting auto adjudicated so swiftly. So they're going through the discovery and all of that now, but that actually is bringing on more legislation in the medical side. I haven't seen any dental legislation
Any
about
movement on that
AI
side?
in
Yeah.
claims
Mm-hmm.
adjudication, but it's going to trickle down from medical. But
Yeah.
we're starting to enter that world where, how much of AI is being used. It's not even images. It's how is it
Sure.
being used in just the processing of the claim. So I feel like we're
Yeah.
going into a whole new world when it
Yeah.
comes to that.
Absolutely.
It'll
Yeah.
be interesting to
I mean,
watch.
it's fantastic because it helps with a little bit more prompt payment, but when it's situations like those, the computer's just denying it for denying it.
Hmm. Yeah. And you got
That's
to look like, because it's not like it's sitting up there thinking. Somebody's programmed a prompt or
exactly. Yeah.
a command to do that. So who is
Exactly.
that? Who's the AI master that's denying
Yeah.
all of our
It's not you
claims?
or I.
Not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all.
No.
Would you like to hear more? Follow the link for the full episode.